Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Integrator Arena Podcast with Brian Wirtz. Everybody, Brian is a retired Marine who has transitioned into the entrepreneurial world as a fractional integrator for companies running on EOS. Brian now helps others do the same. So what he does is he helps integrators become brilliant in the basics and win. How are we doing today, Brian?
Doing great, Mike. Glad to be here again.
So you are the owner and founder of Winning with Warriors, or W3 Integrator Arena. So today we're going to be talking about is the integrator role right for you? So Brian, I think you probably have a couple ideas on this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've given it, coming from, coming from a military background and then kind of learning of this whole EOS concept, the whole idea of this two-headed or kind of two-pronged leadership approach has been something that really resonated with me. And as I did, I tried to start to figure out, using the tools, the EOS Worldwide and the Rocket Fuel ecosystem, the folks, the folks that are associated with pushing the content out from EOS Worldwide. I really tried to figure out, beyond just what they have, how I can help people that I might want to bring into W3 or that might look to me for some coaching, determine if this is the right role for them.
So Brian, let me ask you, what are the core responsibilities that define success in the integrator role?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's good that people understand the basic functions or the accountabilities of the integrator role. They got to be able to, probably above and beyond anything else, they got to be able to solve cross-functional issues in the business. They have to be able to help the business achieve its business plan, or in EOS language, we would call that the vision traction organizer. They should really understand the profit and loss statement and know how to drive things to make things move forward. And really, they are the drumbeat of the organization. That's what they're accountable for, right? But what they have to do to make that happen, you could theoretically understand how to do all those things and not be a great integrator. And on the flip side, you can actually be an okay or developing integrator and maybe not have complete mastery of all those things. So I think, discerning at a high level whether or not this is something that could be a fit, you're looking for somebody that knows how to simplify, that knows how to communicate, and really knows how to break through barriers and make stuff happen.
So what kind of leadership instincts or tendencies tend to indicate someone may be well suited for this role?
I think as I see it, it really comes down to is an individual somebody that knows how to get stuff done. I think there's inherently, as I run into folks in organizations, I run into folks that are sometimes very dependent on other people to tell them what to do and to kind of map their path forward. Someone like that probably is going to struggle in an environment where they really need to kind of move things forward. There's another type of individual, though, that no matter what the challenge is, they're up for the challenge. They think in terms of solutions. They hear big things ahead, and they're trying to immediately start piecing together the puzzle pieces and figure out how can we move things forward. Somebody that has that attitude, has that mindset, could be well suited for this path now or in the future. It might be more in the future if they still haven't had a lot of leadership and management experience. But if you're a real problem solver, and then if you can couple that with things like good people skills, the ability to coach and develop others, and the ability to think in terms of process and documentation, those are some really good things that can help you develop into this higher level role, and can also help an organization when you can bring those and get them share those skills with an entire team.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, why do you think some people thrive in the integrator seat while others find it frustrating?
That's a great question, because really at its heart, the integrator seat is a people. I mean, it is the heartbeat of the entire organization. So they have to be able to deal with the people problems, deal with the process problems, know how to solve issues. They need to keep a strong relationship with the visionary to stay focused on the vision of the organization, as well as strong relationships with each of the leadership team members. There's a fair amount of personal and emotional tax that goes into being successful in this role. Some people really thrive in this role because they're good at developing the people component. They're good at developing those relationships with the visionary, with the leadership team members that then they can leverage when it comes time to helping them overcome hurdles. Sometimes the visionary hurdles might have to do with trying to go into too many directions at once. The integrator should help the visionary stay focused. Leadership team members, especially in small entrepreneurial businesses, I've found tend to be junior and developing. Junior doesn't necessarily have to do with age. There's plenty of people of various ages that could still kind of be junior in their skill set and need to develop into something more. The integrator is someone that should be doing that for them. Some people thrive in having those challenging discussions, helping visionaries stay on track, helping leadership team members grow. Other people really find it frustrating and they feel like they're just constrained by the presenting problems, by the presenting personalities. And when you do that, the result is all the stuff that starts happening, the day-to-day, the problems, the issues that arise, they stack up. And the integrators that struggle end up getting mired in the mounting tasks, which is transactional work, as opposed to the developmental work of transforming people and attitudes to get to the end state of the organization.
That was a really great answer, Brian. So that kind of leads me into my next question. And I've heard you talk about this before, but why do you believe discernment is so important before someone commits to pursuing this role?
Well, so part of what I'm trying, I love to talk about this, Mike. And part of the reason I founded W3 was to help people figure out if this is the right path for them. When I kind of stumbled on it. I say stumbled on it because I was introduced to it by another veteran. And it wasn't even when I first read the book that I said, I need to be that person. It was after a little bit of period of, trying to figure out what's next when I said, you know what, I could also be that person. And then I became an integrator. I think that there's a lot of people that don't know that this type of role exists. And then there's And so they need to be exposed to it. But before they say, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do, they should really understand what it's all about. Being an integrator sounds awesome. Who doesn't want to be the number 2 leader of an organization, especially that's making millions of dollars a year, has 50, 100 employees? I mean, that sounds like a really awesome and sexy and powerful position. It also comes with a lot of headaches. It comes with a lot of challenges. And it's if you take on this type of role without it being in your kind of unique abilities and God-given talents, you're going to find it's not going to be a fun place to be. You might survive for a little while, but ultimately you're probably going to struggle, face a lot of challenges, and it's probably not going to be a long-term fit. And oftentimes it doesn't end well. So figuring out, does this match my skills? Does this match what I want to do with my life? Helps people get both the motivation and set the developmental roadmap that, yeah, I can make this happen. If you just want to do this because you think, oh, that could be a great way to get a nice paycheck, this feels like I could be in a really important position, those are not strong motivations, and those motivations will fold when it gets tough, and you have to have the tough conversations, and you have to push people and organizations to overcome major hurdles that require transformation. If you don't discern it, you're going to fold, and you're going to have to start over and find other something that's probably a better suited fit for your skills and personality. So
that leads me directly into my next question on, can you, Why don't you share an example of someone who discovered the role was a great fit for them? Something personal from your business.
Absolutely. So, I'll go with first names only. But so I've worked with a decent number of integrators and fractional integrators, and I've run into folks, and I talked about them in the past, that maybe don't embrace the integrator role because they think they already have it figured out, and maybe they don't embrace the EOS component of it. But on the flip side, I have actually met folks that I've shared with them the whole EOS framework and help them move along that path. And I'll, again, using first names, I'll talk about Catherine, who several years ago when we first started talking about EOS, said, "Oh, that sounds cool. I'm glad you're having fun with it." And at a certain point, I had the opportunity to invite her in to an organization that was running on EOS and come into the integrator role. That was her an initial exposure. And just like my very first initial exposure, some things went well, some things didn't go as well. But she kept coming back and figuring out, what, this is something I really care about. This is something I can excel at. I want to figure out where those areas I can improve upon are. And she's embraced that and really focused on growing herself using using her understanding of the role, using an understanding of her own strengths and areas for improvement, and focused on those in a way that helps her work stronger or work more effectively when she's in there with a visionary, when she's in with a leadership team. And having had a chance to be in a full-time integrator role and take on some fractional assignments, every time she's out there, she's stronger, more impactful, and more effective with the companies that she's working with. So through the process of discernment and the choice to really invest in herself and focus on personal and professional development, she's really blossomed into a great integrator and fractional integrator.
That actually is a really cool success story. Let's go to the flip side of this one, Brian. Have you ever seen a situation with someone that you've worked with realize that the integrator role was not for them?
Sure. I have. And I think sometimes people realize this themselves, and sometimes it's kind of help the situation helps discover it for them. And I won't use this person's real name. I'll call this person Jeff. All right, for lack of a. And so Jeff is somebody that I was working fractional for a company, and we were getting to a point where part of, when I go in and I work with an organization fractionally, I'm always there trying to get them to a full-time and permanent integrator. And so we brought Jeff in because Jeff had worked in another company, had a background in EOS. It seemed like he understood EOS. Our assessment of his skills and both his skills and his values seemed like he could be a right person, meaning it appeared that he met the values of the organization, and it appeared that he got what and had the capacity to do the job. When he got in the job, what we recognized is he was very much a person that leveraged control-based leadership. He wanted to be in charge of everything. He didn't necessarily want to build and grow his subordinate leaders. And he also didn't, he also struggled to find the best alignment with his visionary counterpart. And therefore, he found himself a bit alienated. And although he had a general understanding of operations, because he was trying to come in and control more than he had really built the rapport and the credibility to control, he found himself struggling to make any forward progress. A lot of folks in the organization didn't take to him, and so therefore he ended up not being a fit and ultimately was phased out of that company.
Perfect. And so what did that look like? Did he go with a different career path after that?
When he's moved on to take on other roles, I don't believe he's pursuing integrator opportunities any longer. I think when someone realizes that if they're not a fit for the people side of it, it doesn't mean that they couldn't go find a role that has operation COO or something in its title. But EOS, like I said, there's a very innate people component to it, and you got to be able to set up those relationships and be a values match. And I think that there may have been some misses to assigning him that values match for the organization. But at the front end, it looked like it was there, but because it wasn't, and because he didn't have some of these people skills that were needed, he just alienated himself. So, of course, we always wish the best for everybody and hope that he's able to develop further as he takes on other roles.
1,000%. You've answered some really good questions. I'm going to kind of wind this one up here for today because this is such an in-depth subject that you and I are going to be talking over quite a few episodes. But just to wind this one up, what advice would you give someone who's trying to decide whether pursuing an integrated role makes sense for them?
Thanks, Mike. So if I wanted to talk to somebody who's trying to discern whether this is right for them, first and foremost, start with the EOS tools. Like go to read the book Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman and Mark C. Winters. Go to the EOS Worldwide content. They have a Rocket Fuel Academy, and you can take things like a crystallizer assessment, which is going to ask you questions about things that represent how you like to work. So start with those tools and take in what those tools will have to offer, and really just answer them with a lot of honesty. If you've done that, if you've read the book, you're starting to say, hey, I think that could be me. You've taken the crystallizer assessment and it says, yeah, I might be a strong integrator. Then I would say folks in that situation may want to check out the W3, the community that we're building. Look at some of the content where I really break down what that discernment looks like. I break it down for folks that are career changers, maybe coming from a career that they started in and they just want to do something entirely different, and really throw a few lenses on there. Have you had the right leadership abilities? Do you know anything about EOS? And where do you want to go in terms of your future objectives? So those are some areas of discernment. But start with the EOS stuff. Check out the W3 community where I really lay out a lot about the discernment process, and then give it a lot of consideration. So, being a veteran, I base this discernment largely on my own and trying to help other veterans who may be considering this figure out if it's right. One of the things that I liked about it and made it a good fit for me is having a very entrepreneurial mind, but not having the financial readiness to become an entrepreneur myself. When I started the integrator path, this gave me a chance to get some of that experience, to get out into entrepreneurial companies. So that was part of my discernment. So I talk about that a little in the W3 content. So, I think look at what resources are out there, really take a hard look at yourself, answer some of those hard questions, put it in writing, do some journaling. In EOS, they call it clarity breaks, but get this stuff out of your head and onto paper, and it will help you uncover whether this might be the right path for you.
You've answered a lot of questions and probably got a lot of people thinking, which is exactly what we want to do. So I think next time we're going to look at a little bit of the career progression, but for today, we've kind of figured out, who should at least be considering this. And I appreciate all your answers. Very insightful, Brian. Thank you so much for taking time with me today to answer, who and who should not be thinking about this.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Enjoy every one of these. So thanks a lot and look forward to seeing you in the next one.
We'll talk.